Hi everyone. Today I'd like to talk a little bit about some very interesting facts pertaining to how birds breed, and I'm going to deal with the incubation of the eggs. You can really broadly define birds into two groups here. Those that we call synchronous hatches, where all the eggs hatch out on the same day, within a few hours of each other, sometimes even minutes of each other, and the asynchronous hatches, where the eggs are hatching out on successive days or every few days. Now, how do they achieve this? Well, essentially what happens is that birds that are tending to live and breed with their nest in areas where there's high predation rates and therefore high potential mortality rates, they tend to have a system whereby they have synchronized hatching. They want all the activity in the nest on the hatching day to be done with as quickly as possible so as not to attract unwanted attention. And in order to achieve this, what they need to do is lay an egg and then not sit on it. They want to lay the next egg and not sit on it. They want to essentially finish the clutch of eggs, 4, 5, 6, however many that may be. And now birds typically don't lay more than an egg a day. They can't physically do that. It takes too long for egg development down the oviduct, but bigger birds will actually take a few days between hatching successive eggs. But once all the eggs are hatched, then they'll sit on the eggs and effectively start the incubation period all at the same time for those eggs, which essentially means that those eggs are then going to hatch out certainly on the same day or within a number of hours of each other. And the chicks will, in many instances, then also synchronize that hatching to even a greater extent by communicating with each other in the last day or so during the pipping process, when they're starting to chip their way out of the eggs. That basically eggs them all on, excuse the pun, and they basically they chip away at the eggs and all come out within a short period of time. And those chicks then are also quite well developed, being exposed usually down on the ground in exposed positions or close to water where there's lots of predators. These birds then will be able to get up and move away from the shell and the nest, because that's going to attract through the scent and the noise that was evident during that breaking out phase. There'll be ants and mongooses and other birds and you name it, any range of predators will come through there. So they want to get out of there as quickly as they can. The eggs are quite big relative to the body size of those birds, the parent that is. So, and that's to house a lot of liquid or an aqueous medium, and also the yolk that's going to sustain the young through the developmental phase. So the chick is going to become quite big before it hatches out. It's going to have a feather covering, eggs that are, the legs that are well developed. It's just really the wings that aren't too developed, and the eyes will be open and it can move around, and it'll need a little bit of parental assistance and guidance in terms of how to find food, and it still can't thermoregulate properly, so the parent will still need to brood it and sit in it and keep it warm and what have you, but it's essentially in a good position and it can move away. Now your birds that are nesting in more protected environments, if you want to call it that, say for example birds up in trees, they nest quite differently. They will actually have much smaller eggs relative to body size, because the incubation period is going to be a lot shorter. So they will lay the egg and then sit on it, and then lay the next egg the next day or whenever it might be and sit on it. And effectively what that does is it staggers the hatching process, so that birds are hatching out on successive days. And that gives these very, very young or very, very poorly developed birds time for parental guidance and care, because they're going to be very, very, no feathers, they're going to have eyes closed, they're not going to be able to move around too much, they're quite helpless, in fact. So the parents will then spend that whole first day like typical new parents, running around trying to keep the baby warm and feed it and whatever else, and you know, that stress, it's nice to deal with one and not a whole group of them that have got their mouths open. So, you know, get through that critical first day, and then the next day the second egg hatches out, and then they can start that process again. So it tends to lower mortality for birds that are breeding in those particular areas in that manner. So yes, very, very interesting facts, and a lot of it has to do with survival, obviously, and adaptation to your individual habitats that these birds find themselves in. So it is very generalized. There are exceptions to every rule, but it's pretty much a rule of thumb.